you made me do. Face, mascara, erase. I wanna look good for you. Comb, hair, don't care. I always comb my hair. Pink, blue, purple. I wanna make it good for you.
Rising out of the mists of an alternate dimension of fantastic films, fanzine Drive an Asylum, an independent publication created by and for fans like you, haunting your days and terrorizing your nights with reminiscences of your favorite nightmare films of a bygone era. Issue number 23 features an extensive interview with actor Pat Carty from William Castle's Let's Kill Uncle and 1973 shocker Horror High. We also talk to the enchanting Christine DeBelle from Meatballs and The Big Brawl. And of course you'll find pages and pages of newsprint ads arranged in collage form the way you used to find them in your newspaper. Images of the sensational, the shocking, the lurid, the bizarre. They're here, now, waiting to be rediscovered in the pages of Drive an Asylum. Order directly from Etsy shop Groovy Doom or visit one of these fine retailers to pick up Drive an Asylum, your fantastic film connection. To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a fanzine. 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 Welcome back to the Drive an Asylum double feature, and we hope you enjoyed our first movie of the evening, Liquid Sky, which I'm still reeling, and I think Gigi could say the same.
I noticed that the chat is a little bit split. It looks about half of you had a good time with it, and the other half of you are very confused as to what the hell you just watched.
I think Sean Midas was just kidding, because I know he knows this movie. So, but yeah. Let us know what you thought in the chat. I don't know. The first time I saw this movie, I didn't really... It's not that I didn't like it. I just didn't get where it was coming from. And the second time I watched it, it unfolded like a beautiful flower.
I never... This is purely... Honestly, you could say the same thing about this that a lot of people at the time said about New Wave, where it was all style and not a lot of substance. But as far as the New York downtown era that it's referencing, where kind of the new wavers and the rock and rollers and the rappers and all of these different subcultures were all kind of clustered in these downtown venues, I think it does a better job of like, that was old New York, dirty New York. It wasn't, necessarily soft around the edges. A lot of it was really rough and really grimy. And it's interesting because Anne Carlisle also has a small part in Desperately Seeking Susan, which is the most corporate, defanged, edges sanded off version of that same time and that same place.
Interesting that you mentioned Desperately Seeking Susan, because this is a thought I started on the first segment but lost my trail. Otto von Werner plays the German scientist who is onto the aliens in this movie. And he actually is an electronic musician also, in addition to an actor. And he did some demos in the early 80s, and he hired a backup singer to perform with him. That backup singer happened to be Madonna. And after Madonna became a huge star, Otto von Werner decided to reissue those songs with those background vocals in the forefront now. And he just sort of like remixed her incidental vocals into a track and released it a couple of different times. I think there was a whole album of different permutations of those same 3 songs.
Of all of the money he could squeeze out of that particular studio session.
Yeah. Maybe he paid a lot for it. I don't know. So, yeah, let's talk about the clothes. You had an interesting comment about the clothes and how they were created.
The costume designer here, and I'm going to make sure I am pronouncing her name correctly, hopefully, Marina Levikova. This was the only credit she has as a costume designer, and basically they took things from Anne Carlisle's actual wardrobe, they street cast extras, they were using things from thrift stores, and basically like pinning things together and cutting things together on the actors for each scene. And this look that this film created, it pops up in a lot of places. Like I said, go forward another couple of years and she's not the only person who looks like that in any given club. And then it came back in terms of the early 2000s. Early Lady Gaga costumes have a lot of commonalities with the costumes in this movie. It's really a shame that the costume designer did not. She ended up moving into production design for animation. But she did do some costuming for rock stars. There was supposedly a Bloomingdale's collection based on the fashion in this film. If anyone sees anything that proves that exists, please let me know immediately because, I need it. I want it. I have to have it.
Can you imagine the ad campaign for that? Wow.
I imagine it would probably look like the late 80s, early 90s Shishido ads, lots of primary colors and stark whites and elaborate hats.
Yeah. Someone we forgot to mention when we were talking about potential Anne Carlisle parallels was Dale Bozio from Missing Persons.
Yeah, that's definitely something that probably was floating around at that point. There were people. She had Anne Carlisle had a modeling contract specifically because she looked new wave. It just hadn't reached its saturation point just yet.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, hence why people, if you read reviews from that period, if you watch Siskel and Ebert doing the show on it, they keep saying punk, 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 punk. And any punk worth their salt is going to tell you immediately that has fuck all to do with them. That's
not punk rock.
No.
I'm sure nobody in this chat thought it was punk rock anyway. Oh God, I loved that woman that had this strange angular, I think it was a triangle cut into her neck. And it looked like a plastic see-through umbrella.
It probably was. It honestly was.
I hope it was.
Yeah, it probably was. And just because we can talk about this now, someone was asking about it on the first segment. There was some talk around 2014 that there was going to be a sequel, and Anne and Slava were working on a sequel to this film. But the most recent screenings of the restoration, any of the appearances that they've made, I haven't heard anything more about that being an actual thing. So I'm guessing that was probably something that they wanted to do and maybe couldn't get funding for, because I haven't heard anything. There's not a single, not even so much as a news item that they're trying.
Well, at least we have that beautiful Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray.
Yeah, which is quite gorgeous. So at least we have that.
It's amazing to me that now how far we've come with home media. Um, because I can remember the first time I ever saw somebody that had one of those giant TVs that was really just like a projection, and it looked terrible. But that was the first way I watched The Hunger, was on one
Also,
of those.
like the first time I saw this, like the colors were almost muddy. It was like a
Yeah,
crappy, like multiple generation VHS copy. To see it the way it looks in the restoration, the way it was meant to be seen, is a completely different experience.
that scene where she puts on the fluorescent makeup is just
Yes, the like
beautiful.
day glow paint.
Although I was very aware that she was putting makeup on top of makeup.
It's
She,
fashion. Don't ask
I,
questions.
yeah, who am I to question that?
Yeah, who are you to question the editors of Midnight Magazine who feel that it's necessary to like cluck at them like chickens until they try to fuck? You know,
I only spent 2 hours to get this look that you see before you tonight. So what should I know?
incidentally, one of the oddest Playboy shoots I've ever seen is Anne Carlisle's, because she does part of the shoot as Jimmy, part of the shoot as her character Margaret, and then the rest of the shoot as herself. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like the pictures as Jimmy are the best ones, ironically.
Just to date someone who reminded him of
I
Adrian.
can see that. That person would be a performance artist.
She just reminds me of Karen Finley. Like if you've ever seen Mondo, New York, there's a film called Mondo, New York. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a document of just like oddities, performers that were making the rounds in New York at the time, offbeat people. Dean and the Weenies were also in that movie. Like this strange new wave outfit for half a second. And Karen Finley was in that movie too, performing one of her pieces called The Constant State of Desire. And she covers herself with glitter. Well, she's nude. She's topless in the performance, and she gets a plastic bag and she fills it with eggs, and then she smashes up the eggs and dumps all this glitter and confetti and stuff in it, and then she pours it all over herself. So she's like this strange glittering apparition. And I don't know. Adrian didn't go that far. She was very understated in her black clothing. But yeah, I became a huge fan of Karen Finley after seeing that movie, and it crystallized in a moment where she did a lecture here at Carnegie Mellon University. I didn't even go there, but I knew she was going to be there, so I went to.
Oh, I was
her
going to say you
lecture.
didn't go.
No, no, I didn't go to Carnegie Mellon.
Okay, yeah, you
But
didn't
anybody,
attend. Okay, got
yeah,
it.
I guess anybody could go. It was amazing. Like I was the first person there, and she was already sitting on stage, and then we did this like uncomfortable thing, like we didn't want to look at each other. And I was so starstruck, I was taking pictures after the lecture started, and she looked right at me. She's like, "You know what? Can we wait until after the performance, and I'll let you take pictures of me?" And I was so humiliated.
Did you get your pictures though?
Yes, she was very gracious. She
Okay.
signed my book. I had her book, and she signed it. She even drew a little drawing in it. So she was great. Adrian, though, she was pretty fabulous with her rhythm box.
Like I said, I have seen basically that exact performance in early 2000s Brooklyn more than once. Like that's surprisingly directional. Actually, probably less accomplished than what we saw tonight.
I love that. I love that line in Me and My Rhythm Box where she says, "It doesn't shit." Her rhythm box doesn't poop on her floor, like a dog, I guess.
I mean, that's a low bar, but okay. At that time, not having to deal with excrement, animal or human, was legitimately a plus.
Could you imagine, like, how was your day? Oh, it was really long and hard, and then I got home and the rhythm box shit all over the floor, and I was like,
Also, it looks like a couple of you didn't realize that it was the same actor, the same performer. Jimmy and Margaret were the same person.
yeah, I don't know. To me, I could tell pretty easily, but I guess it's all in the perception. Um, did you ever see Homicidal? William Castle's Homicidal? I got it right away. There's a character in it who isn't what they appear to
You ruined
be.
it for yourself.
What did you say?
You ruined it for yourself.
Yeah, like I got it right away, and I was like, oh, well, that's this other character wearing a costume, but you weren't supposed to know that. It was supposed to be this
You
thing.
spoiled the movie.
So this was another Margaret Jimmy situation. That's awesome.
I agree with Mike Justice. Paula Shepherd was a national treasure because, quite frankly, she's good in Alice, Sweet Alice, and she's great in this because she's such a little tiny, delicate little baby face thing. And the whole time in a film full of horrible people, she's the worst of the group. She's the most intimidating. She seems the most legitimately dangerous, whereas Margaret is pretty passive and Jimmy's just a coked up asshole, you know.
Yeah, you're right about that because there's that moment in the restaurant where she reveals this detail of her childhood about her mother being institutionalized, and you're like, oh, I
Oh,
can
that
see
explains a
why.
lot.
Yeah. Now, and we know where she came from. Hi, Margot Deneuve. You've got a little Anne Carlisle thing going on in there in your photo too. Awesome. So yeah, it was an interesting overall atmosphere in this film. I really like it. I know I can see why some people wouldn't, but I dig it.
I love it. And I mean, as far as making virtues out of necessities goes, there are very few films that have done it better than this one. All of that neon was so that they didn't have to reset lighting if you're dealing with the same unnatural light all the time because they didn't necessarily have the money or the crew to accommodate for that. You know, they're making the costumes on the fly, like they're, street casting your extras. I don't think there's any other movie that took a very small budget. Like there's very few that turn it into something that feels so fully realized.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Yeah, Doug, you're right. She looked the most normal, but she was scarier than any of them.
Yeah, very much. There's something about her eyes. Of course, they used that to great effect in Alice, Sweet Alice, and they did it here too. She was a lot older in Liquid Sky than she was in Alice, although she was 19 when she did Alice, Sweet Alice. But this was like at least 6-7 years later.
I want to say more than that. I'm going to double check just so
Probably.
you're wrong.
Because she made Alice, Sweet Alice, I think in 75.
76.
Okay. So, yeah. I wonder why she didn't take any roles between those two films.
I don't know why she disappeared that quickly. I mean, out of all of the people who have one or two feature film credits, she definitely was someone who could have had other parts.
Sean, I'm surprised that you haven't seen Liquid Sky because when I was researching it, I did a post search and you posted on my wall back when Vinegar Syndrome put it out. So I thought maybe you had already seen it, but this was the first time you watched it. I'm so excited. I wish I would have known this was going to be your first time seeing Liquid Sky. Sean's going to be at the Monsterama.
Yeah, how many of you are going to be at Monsterama? Are any of you going?
Mike Justice threatened to go.
Threatened to go is not the same as go.
Exactly. Roger Braden was supposed to go. And Mark Dockham is going to go. I should get the graphic going here for the Monsterama. I'm getting ahead of myself here. For those of you who don't know, this event is going to happen at the end of April, and it's going to be at the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, PA. And it's going to be a really good time. There's going to be 8 fantastic films to view that night. And you can purchase this t-shirt ahead of time, and you can pick it up at the show if you like. This is something
by someone we know. Who could have done such a thing?
Oh, what monster could have done this? You can go to the Drive-In Super Monsterama Facebook page and order this shirt. If you're not going to go to the event, you can just have it shipped to you. But if you are going, you can arrange to have it there already and waiting for you when you arrive. It's going to be 8 classic films, April 29th and 30th, I believe. Those are the 2 dates. It's the last Friday and Saturday in April. Friday night's going to be Halloween 2, Terror Train, Midnight, and Effects. I can't wait to see Effects on the big screen. This is going to be the highlight of the Monsterama for me.
I am not going, guys. Sorry. We are trying to make the logistics work so that I can finally force Bill and Sam to do, something from the drive-in for the show. But that is a project that has not come to fruition yet. I promise. If I'm heading to the drive-in, you guys will be the first ones to know about it, okay?
It's something we're trying to make happen in the future.
Yes, it's something we're trying to, it's being worked on. The production assistants on this show, the 0 of them that we have are working on it.
I loved hearing that term, production assistants. If only we had that, I could have somebody to blame for when things go wrong.
Every time we get the videos backwards or somebody's mic drops, we could have someone to yell at.
Speaking of that, I'm curious about whether anybody was able to hear the intro for tonight's second segment, because on my end, it looked like the volume was turned way down on YouTube. So let me know if any of you had a hard time hearing it when we came back after the break. But anyway, that's the t-shirt I designed for it. So what else should we talk about? What other announcements do we have to make? Do you have any announcements, Gigi?
I do not have any announcements. Things are coming, but they have not happened yet. So watch the usual spaces at Twitter and Instagram, Ms. Midnight Movie, and you can keep up with all of my various, wandering about, pulling things out of my bag of trash films and getting excited about them because, hey, why not? All of the high budget stuff already has champions, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Everybody talks about stuff like, Halloween and Friday the 13th, and not that those aren't awesome, but everybody.
There's lots of new horror movies that are very good. There's lots of things, but those things are going to have champions in and of themselves. So, as always, keep an eye on the socials to see what I've got going on. I don't claim to be an expert in anything other than my own taste, but if you want to come tell me it's questionable, don't worry, because you're right, it is. Oh, I'm so glad you remember. You were here for Deadly Twins. Yes, okay. Which was, for those of you who were not here that week, that is a movie starring the Landers sisters, a German-American co-production that is inexplicably a rape revenge disco soap opera. It's a lot of fun, and it's on YouTube. So if you want to watch it, you should.
Yeah, Mike did the trailer for Deadly Twins.
Yeah, you did. You did, and I remember the trailer that week was actually pretty neat. How many movies have aliens and lesbians? Probably more than just these 2.
Yeah, we're going to watch another one coming up.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened, we swear.
No, I did it on purpose. I was trying. This is not I woke up like this situation. I was trying to keep to a theme, aliens, and, well, this is interesting, actually, because Liquid Sky makes it pretty explicit that Margaret is more of like a pansexual. She's like, why does it matter? Men, women, you fuck who you fuck and you love who you love. Who gives a damn? And that's rather forward thinking for an 82 movie. But nonetheless, non-straight folks and aliens, that is this week's theme.
I think Pamela liked Liquid Sky. She has no words. Pamela, this is interesting because the version that Gigi was watching was edited, and mine had more of the really violent stuff in it. So I'm not sure which version everybody was watching. So some people probably are just finishing. But regardless, so anything else you want to say about Liquid Sky before we go on to our second feature of the evening?
I think we should go to Prey. Why not?
Yes. It's time to, well, not pray, but Prey, our second feature of the evening, a stunning alien film from 1977.
77. I don't know if I'd call it stunning.
A still life?
Norman J. Warren.
Yeah.
This movie is kind of interesting that it even is a movie at all because it only had a 3-week pre-production period and only 10 days to shoot. They were still writing the script while they were shooting it because they were on a very tight schedule because they only had access to the house and to the back lot that they were using for that tiny 10-day window, which is why when we watched the film, you were talking about how it's a furniture movie. It's a particularly deranged and somewhat schizophrenic furniture movie because it was whatever they could pull out of the backlot prop house and shove, where they needed it to go on a very short turnaround.
They did a pretty fabulous job, although something looks just off about it. And I guess that works for the film as well, that they're living in this beautiful home and these two that are having this seemingly idyllic relationship into which comes literally an alien in their midst. And then we start to learn that maybe their relationship wasn't as idyllic as it seemed. Things start to darken.
I mean, things start to darken. It is a little heavy in its themes. It definitely, doesn't really believe in subtext. But the fact that it is combining a science fiction narrative and what could have easily been like a two-hander play is interesting in and of itself, even if it doesn't always work.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those. Norman J. Warren is one of those acquired tastes because there's something just really strange about the way he puts his films together. They're kind of rickety and they run really well in certain parts, and then other parts just kind of unravel.
I was watching an interview with him from, I believe it was Fright Fest a couple of years back, because he's passed on now, I believe.
Yeah.
And he said specifically he liked working in horror because you don't have to deal with like 100% reality. You can kind of just throw reality to the side from time to time. And I mean, clearly, it's kind of a theme across all his films that things are patched together with popsicle sticks, glue, and, suspension of disbelief. But as much as I make fun of a lot of films, if you read my writing, if you follow me on the socials, as much as I poke fun at films a lot of the time for having characters that don't behave like anything remotely human, at least to this film's credit, one of them isn't.
Yeah, that's a good point, because no one in this movie looks like they're actually reacting the way a human being would to any of the games.
I'm trying to think of movies that I've Pot Parents, Police. I know I definitely said that about Fangs. Why is the whole town obsessed with snakes? There are a lot of movies where, the behavior follows the needs of the narrative rather than any human characterization. But here, at least one of them isn't.
So what are some other Norman J. Warren films? Maybe we should talk about that a little bit.
I mean, Inseminoid is not my deal.
I don't like that one either.
I
don't know. It's just a big letdown.
A lot of people like it. I know like a lot of people like to be a bit like of an edgelord about it, but it's just the wheels come completely off.
Thank you. I feel the same way. And I wanted it to be good.
Yeah. It's one of those things you want to be better than it is. Because I'm sorry, that's a great title.
Yes.
Like, I even love that. Is it a porn? Sit down and find out. Like
an alien porn.
These things exist. As the internet has unfortunately forced me to know, these things exist.
Tentacle porn. I guess Inseminoid could be considered tentacle porn. But the US title was Horror Planet. And I even like that title. Which is way
lamer.
I like that title too. I'm down with Horror Planet. But the other Norman J. Warren film that I really like is Terror. His sort of Suspiria riff.
I think Okay, we're grading on a curve here. Keep in mind. But his horror films are more interesting than the more like sexploitation-ish stuff he did before that.
Yeah. What's some of the sexploitation stuff he did?
Hold on. I know Her Private Hell was one of them, but Her Private Hell, Loving Feeling, and then it looks like after that he pretty much just called. Yeah, because he turned down another film called Love is a Splendid Illusion, which I have not watched, but I know Her Private Hell is definitely his, and it's not great. It's it's like, oh, there's skin. Lovely. All right. It's fine, I guess.
So he does better with the horror genre.
Yeah. I feel like horror is easier to make idiosyncratic than in like a more sex-based film. Because sex is kind of inherently ridiculous if you think about it, and there's only so far you can push before it just stops making sense. Whereas with a horror film, you can have like a lot more fantastical stuff and kind of sweep it under the rug.
This movie does have some pretty explicit sex in it.
Yeah, for this kind of film, it definitely does.
But nothing in it is particularly erotic either. It's that kind of movie.
Yeah, it's, there's lots of sex in it, but none of the sex is very sexy. It's definitely that kind of film. Also,
Now,
I forget which one of you just said in the chat that you thought it was a werewolf movie. The makeup does kind of look like a werewolf. I could see why you would think this was a werewolf movie.
Yeah. Well, what he looks like is a fox, sort of. And this movie is sort of unofficially based on the 1967, I think, movie The Fox.
Which was based on an older novelette, I think, from the 20s or 30s. It's very old. That was the original, like, literary source material was more subtle, though. It was implied that the women are lovers, whereas Prey makes it explicit that they are. She states it and in the dinner party scene.
There's no question whatsoever. And if you had any doubts, there's one scene in the movie that will erase all those doubts for you.
Just in case, again, whoever said there is no subtext here, yeah, you're correct.
It's so great how they get around the budgetary expectations of making an alien film, because it's just so they just reduce all of the alien segments to just a footnote in the script, and even the spaceship landing, you don't see it.
I mean, you don't necessarily I think it's interesting that they kind of take all of that visual vocabulary that you learn if you watch like a lot of like mid-century like creature feature and sci-fi films, like, oh, flashing lights and like weird wind and, middle of the night, that means aliens. And, kind of let everybody's movie trained brain fill in those gaps. And you don't ever see the aliens. You just hear them communicating back and forth, which, it's interesting that all the aliens have such lovely British accents.
Yeah, they
just
speak
for the
English.
clarity of alien speech.
And they apparently have an extremely advanced civilization, because there must be that's either their ship is just off world, or that's a hell of a Wi-Fi signal they have.
I mean, they can't be that advanced, because they're coming to Earth for very specific purposes, which I won't spoil in case we have anyone here who hasn't seen this.
Yes. Yeah, let us know, of course, if this is going to be the first time you're watching Prey tonight, because we want to know. Thanks to everyone for coming back. Looks like
for coming back after Liquid Sky and hanging out with us. Do we have a drink for this film?
Yes, we do.
Because
and
I would like another, and that gives me an excuse.
Oh, you don't need an excuse, Gigi.
I mean, I like to delude myself.
Me too. I'm into the delusion, I admit. All right, so yeah, as you may have noticed, Sam Panico is not on the program tonight, but he is with us here in spirit, and he's with us here in video. So here he is to give us our second cocktail of the evening.
Hey, it's time for our second cocktail at Amityville Park. As Bill will show you an order entitled for Prey.
Second movie tonight. This one's super simple. We're going to start off with some gin. We're going to do 2 ounces of gin. And what we're going to do is we're going to change it up so this is not in a normal shaker. we're going to use a mixing cup, which is, I always thought it was super fancy. It's not. Basically, all you're doing is you're pouring it into a glass, and you use the other half of your shaker as a glass. So we got the 2 ounces of gin in there. We're going to do a couple drops of orange bitters. Around a half tablespoon of simple syrup, and then about a tablespoon of cherry juice. Maraschino cherry juice, that is. And here's the trick. Hopefully this works out. You take the top of your shaker in there, and just shake it like that. You get a nice shake. Hopefully don't break your glass. There we go. It's a nice pink color. Way better than I thought it was going to be. And that's how you make the drink for Prey. Please enjoy. I'll see you guys next week. Super excited about next week's movie. It's an end of the world movie.
Pazuzu to all of you, and Pazuzu to Sam. And
yes, thank you, Sam, for still mixing us drinks in spirit.
Right on.
Also, I think it's hilarious that the chat knows that I drink gin.
Yes, this was kind of your night. Well, one of the drinks had gin in it.
But cheers, guys. Pazuzu.
I can't remember the first time I saw Prey, to be honest. But I guess it was the link that we have posted tonight is to the VHS rip. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find the HD version streaming online anywhere. And Vinegar Syndrome did a beautiful transfer of it. You should all go buy it immediately because it's just gorgeous.
And it's probably the nicest home release that this film is ever going to get.
Truth. But the VHS is really cruddy and wonderful, and I'm sure you're going to love watching it that way anyway. It's called Alien Prey in that format, and there may be something edited out of it. I'm not sure. But, you know, you get the general idea.
That, and, you know, I'm sure most of you who have already seen this have probably come across it in that format, depending. Because, I mean, that Vinegar Syndrome disc is fairly recent, and I think there was a Region 2 disc before that, but this hasn't been on a modern format all that long.
I had a stack of Blu-rays that just went missing, and Prey was one of them. I had to buy it again. I lost Effects. I lost Prey. So I had to rebuy them.
Somebody's rude. Who was in your house?
I don't know. Who would come into my house and just steal those 2 Blu-rays? It wasn't you, was it, Gigi?
No, I would have rated more than 2. Got to make it worth the trip.
Yeah. Right? You gotta actually make it worthwhile. Sam didn't take them either, so I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, Effects is one of my favorite movies too, and I'm so excited to get to see it at the Monsterama. We featured the director Dusty Nelson was in Drive-In Asylum issue number 20, and he talked a lot about, you know, just how it was to make that movie, and then it didn't go anywhere. Just seemingly nothing happened with it. It didn't get released theatrically, at least not in a big way. There were a few regional screenings, but in general, most people did not see Effects. So
and that's unfortunate because it's actually a really fun film.
I think so. It's very prescient. Like, you don't expect a movie from 1980 to be layered like it's a modern film. That like there's more than one thing happening in the story, and then there's a twist, and you start to get the big picture about what is really going on in the movie. So that's interesting. I think a lot of people more people would like it if more people had seen it.
Yeah, that's one of those things that kind of got kneecapped. We've done quite a few movies where that's the case on this show, I feel like.
Can you think of anything else we did that was like that?
The Black Room, for sure. If that had gotten distribution, I think people would feel much better about it. To a certain degree, the film we just watched, the fact that it vanished and was this close to being lost, despite being a huge hit in its own era, I think if it would have been, you know, more readily available between then and now, because it already has quite the cult. Can you imagine all of the little hipsters that would have latched right on to that whole movie's aesthetic?
I know, it would have been gorgeous, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it actually would have been really fun. All of these little neon fetuses making elaborate costumes for themselves. It would have been Club Kids, but like cooler. Oh, also, Steve, thank you that you like my glass.
Here's another announcement that I have to make. Sam and I just finished we just finished doing an audio commentary for Messiah of Evil. And this wasn't, no one hired us to do this, so we can actually talk about that as opposed to the other ones that we can't talk about yet. But this one was just for fun. We did a commentary for Messiah of Evil, and you can find that tomorrow. I'm going to post it on the Groovy Doom YouTube channel. So tomorrow on the Groovy Doom YouTube channel, look it up. We did some intense discussion about one of our favorite films, and I know a lot of people here like it too.
Also, if there's something else you'd like to see Sam and Bill cover in that format, you want your very own commentary track to a specific something, maybe you should let them know in the comments. Let them know on YouTube. Maybe if you ask nicely, you'll receive.
You probably will. It's going to be something we're going to do more and more frequently, just for fun.
Dustin wants to know if we can have a night of movies that the hosts don't like. Why? Do you want to hear us bag on things, Dustin?
You have MST3K. They do that a lot better on that show, and riff tracks, and etc.
I mean, I can tell you what movie it would be if we were going to watch a movie I know I don't like, The Candy Snatchers.
You really hate on the Candy Snatchers.
I have tried to like that movie across like 2 home releases and 3 formats now, and I just do not.
What don't you like about it?
It's like an episode of Mannix with more nudity and an odd little kid who really shouldn't have been on the set to see any of those things.
That alone is pretty disturbing.
Also, I think Tiffany Bowling is overacting in it, like really badly. Like everything she does, she's like gnashing her teeth and pulling it, like doing weird, like twitchy things, and she thinks that's like emoting. She's much better in a lot of other movies. Like she's less like toothy and snarly in Bonnie's Kids. She's actually pretty good in Wicked Wicked. But that movie is very much, I don't find it's trying to do more of a complex plot than it's really ready to do. I don't think she does a great job in it. I don't think, oh my God, that little kid takes up so much runtime. So if we were going to do movies that, the hosts don't like, The Candy Snatchers, there you go.
I think Tiffany Bowling is tremendous in Kingdom of the Spiders.
I mean, Kingdom of the Spiders is just fun. It wouldn't have mattered if everyone was a piece of literal wood, if everything else was the same in that movie.
You're right, yeah. But she actually has to handle tarantulas in it, which I fully respect.
Yeah, that's not the most fun time.
I don't know if I could do that, to be honest. One time I bought, there was an issue of Playboy magazine that Rosie Holitik was in from Don't Look in the Basement. And I really wanted to, up my Don't Look in the Basement collection. So I ordered it from eBay, this vintage Playboy magazine. And when I got it, Rosie's pictorial had been removed. It was nowhere in there. But also in the magazine was Tiffany Bowling. She did a layout in Playboy.
Every time I buy like a Grindhouse History or like Exploitation Cinema book, and a lot of times with out of print books, I'll buy like old library copies or used copies. Every single time, if there is any sort of pictorial of Audrey Campbell from the Olga series, it is always missing. There is like a herd of little fetishists who went to every library in like 6 states and like, oh, Audrey Campbell. Gotta cut that right out.
Yeah, it's rude.
Some of these were library books. That's extra rude.
I guess I'm guilty of that, although I didn't cut dirty pictures out of the library. I just took, like pretty much anything I wanted from the library. Did you ever have a library book for a really long time and they send you a letter?
Oh, no, because, if I had done anything that had caused fees, that would have been, nope. I'm a grown woman and I'm still real careful about returning my library books on time.
Yeah. Yeah, I always kept my library books a lot longer than I should have. I didn't care. Okay. I wasn't done with it yet.
No one can tell you to bring it back.
So back to Prey. Barry Stokes is in this. And I think this was one of his first theatrical films, if I'm not mistaken. He was a stage actor in London.
I'm trying to. It has to be the timeline. It's got to be one of his early credits. It absolutely has to be.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of stage work because when I was researching this, I wasn't able to find any theatrical screenings where there were ads for it, except for this one, and I'll show it. This isn't, or we're not going to have an ad gallery, so I'll just show this. This is an ad I dug up from Liverpool from 1979.
That's an odd double feature.
Yeah, how about that? That's really weird because Charlie One Eye was from 73. And Prey
and if you were going to revive that as like the bottom of a double bill, it seems to be a very strange film to choose to put with Prey.
Yeah. But anyway, there it is. And this is from 79. It did open in 77 in the UK, but it happens that I wasn't able to find any theatrical ads, any ads for it, picture ads. So this is all you get for Prey. Sorry. I tried.
This was an early film for Gloria Annan, too, I believe. I think this was her second credit. She didn't have a huge career after this, though, I don't think. And then the actress who plays Josephine, she actually had a long career in television.
Wow. I'm surprised after playing. Was it before or after Prey?
After.
Because she's really mean in this movie and kind of threatening.
I mean, I don't think her performance is bad necessarily. A lot of the things that makes these characters a little bit strange is firmly on the side of the writing. And the fact that, their behavior is not very consistent as characters or as people, they were still they were giving the actors their sides for the day, having just written them piecemeal. So it's not like this was written with like a consistent idea in mind.
That's right. Now that you say that, I remember reading that they were kind of like writing the script as they went along.
Yeah, because they had such a short, rehearsal, pre-production, shooting time. The timeline was so compressed. And apparently it was the producer that insisted that the movie had to be about lesbians meeting an alien. He didn't care how that happened. He didn't care what the mechanics of that whole meeting was. He just wanted lesbians to meet an alien. Why precisely, unfortunately, is lost to history.
You'll understand when you watch the movie that our two leads don't really understand that their guest is a literal alien from outer space, but they put him through some strange paces. They must accept him as a foreigner who really is not accustomed to the ways of, I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest.
Well, when they do announce what they're thinking, let's just say their own personal biases might be coming into what they assume the stranger is versus what he actually is.
Yeah. One of the characters is speaking from experience when she makes this judgment.
She makes a presumption.
And we can't really blame her. But anywho, anything else you want to say about Prey before we get into it? Because
not without spoiling things. So let's get to it. So this way I can talk freely on the opposite side.
I feel the same way. I prefer it when, there are no spoilers left. So if I don't know if anyone's watching the show for the first time. We don't actually show the movie in this environment. I forgot to mention this in the first segment, so I apologize if I startled people by ending the broadcast. But I posted the link on Groovy Doom where you can go watch this on YouTube. We'll be watching along with you, and after it's over, we'll give you a little bit of time to catch up, and we'll come back again to talk some more about Prey and who knows what else on the third segment of the Drive-In Asylum double feature.